When the drivers came back in the garage, George came to Jackie and said, "Hey, Jackie, what happened to your car then? You cheated. You went against the rules." We had to literally separate the drivers. Jackie Oliver runs behind me, you know. George Follmer was a big guy.
Welcome back to the channel, and hope you're ready for another story from my dad, the 1970s race mechanic, Tony Connor. Mom and Dad are here visiting Rach and I in Las Vegas this week, so in between hikes and visiting celebrity restaurants, we decided it'd be a good opportunity to get out another video. Listen up, hope you enjoy it.
Hello everybody, this is Tony Connor. I did a couple of videos about my experiences in Formula One, and today we're on location in Red Rock Canyon, Las Vegas. We have a beautiful scenery around us. What I would like to talk about today is when I moved on from Formula One to America with the Can-Am Canada and American Racing Series and also the Formula 5000. Initially, I moved from BRM to Shadow Racing to work on Jackie Oliver's Can-Am car. The Formula One team were having problems getting going. It was like a new team. The team manager, Alan Reese, came to me and said, "I would like you to work for us, but I've just been hired with this team." He said, "I don't care, I'm in charge here and we can do whatever I like. I would like you to come on to the Formula One team. What are you going to pay me?" He said, "Whatever you want." Multiplied what I was getting by 3 and he said, "Okay." So I started there. I did about 3 races. There was a message came from Chicago from the big boss, Don Nichols, and the chief mechanic on that Can-Am team had spoken to him and said, "We need Tony." It went backwards and forwards a little, and I said, "Well, if it works out, I'll agree to it and go ahead." I agreed to it, and they said, "Okay, you're leaving for Chicago in the morning." This was in 1973, and we had this beast of a Can-Am car, Chevrolet, that had like 1,200 horsepower. It was such a beast, Jackie Oliver didn't want to drive it. Basically said, "This thing just wheel spins the whole time." They hired somebody else, Vic Elford, to come along and drive that car. We didn't do very well at all in that season. Then the next season, 74, Jackie Oliver and George Follmer. We had a real decent car. We had a new car, almost like a Formula One car, but made into a 2-seater. At the first race, already I could see there was going to be some problems between these two drivers. The owner said, "Okay," he said, "what I want you to do is you race in qualifying. Hold that position for the race." So they said, "Okay." So we had the qualifying, and Jackie Oliver, he got pole position, and George Follmer was second right behind me, real close. I was in the garage, we were standing there with the cars, the 2 drivers were there, and Don Nichols, the owner, came out and said, "Okay, boys, you know the rules. Jackie, you got pole position. George, it's up to you to hold position." Jackie Oliver walked away, and then Don Nichols, I heard him, he went and whispered to George, "Go for it, George." So immediately there was going to be a problem. At the first corner, George cut Jackie Oliver off, almost pushed him off. Oliver ended up having an engine problem, broke down. The race was in 2 parts. So at the second part, George Follmer was in pole position and Jackie Oliver was at the back of the grid. My friend and I pushed the car to the back of the grid. Nobody else wanted to help us. They were all working on the car that was on pole position. As we always used to say, there's a better class of personalities at the back of the grid. The race started in 1 lap almost. Jackie Oliver had come through the field and he was second. He was a few seconds behind, but he was second. He was gradually catching George, but then George Follmer got a puncture. He got a flat. And in those days, we were not good at changing wheels like they are now. In 2-3 seconds. It was over a minute. Jackie Oliver won the race. Going back to in between the 2 heats, when the drivers came back in the garage, George came to Jackie and said, "Hey, Jackie, what happened to your car then? You cheated. You went against the rules." We had to literally separate the drivers. Jackie Oliver runs behind me, you know. George Follmer was a big guy. But anyway, they got over it. The rest of the season, almost like that, every race. A certain journalist, photographer, who I knew from Formula One, his name was Gordon Kirby, and he said to me, "I've been watching races all over the world," and he said, "That Can-Am race that they had in mid-Ohio was the best one I've ever seen." The two of them were going backwards and forwards the whole race. Jackie said, I was in front and we're coming down to this hairpin turn, and I looked in my mirror and George wasn't even going to go and take the turn. He just cut across and he was heading straight for me to T-bone me. And he said, I managed to slide the car out of the way. He came back in the pits and he got out and trampled his feet all over the bodywork as he's getting out, and walked across to his car, his street car, and drove off home. That was that race, but it was incredible. At the end of the season, when we got to Laguna Seca, which was in Northern California, after the race, press were there. They decided the day after that they would take them around for a lap in the car. And then Jackie Oliver called over to me and said, come on, Tony, it's your turn. I said, want me to go around? He said, yeah. How many miles are on the car? I said, probably 500. How many miles between rebuild? Well, 500. So I said, okay, we'll see how the car is. We did 3 laps. 1 lap to warm up, time would start, and then he'd do that flying lap. There was a part of the circuit, we must have been doing 180 uphill. We went over the crest of the hill and I could see nothing but sky. It came down with a crash and it was immediately on the brake. There was this sharp turn just ahead of us, what they call an adverse camber turn, one that the angle goes away on you. You can't believe how those cars stick. He came to the last turn, there were all these tires for the barriers there, and he put the back end out and he ripped out a good number of these tires as he went. And the time that he did with me in the car was the same as his pole position time was for the race. So he said, how's that? I said, is that as quick as you can go? No, it was incredible. One other thing that man did for me, we were in Riverside, California, they had a race. And my mother came over, flew over from England, the first time she'd ever flown abroad. The night before the race, Jackie Oliver took her out to dinner. That made her day, made her year, and me too. That was so wonderful. Anyway, thank you, Jackie Oliver.
And thank you for watching. We've still got stories to tell, so subscribe and stay tuned for more.
Oh, you got the drone with you?
Oh, yeah. Always. I rarely use it, but bring it every time.